Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the first ever episode of my personal segment of the Culture Corner podcast called Quali-Tea Time with Shay, where I am going to spill the tea on whatever topic I feel like spilling the tea about that week. So, today we are going to wrap up Women's History Month and we are going to talk about two ladies who have made a huge impact in pop culture. So, these are two names that are not going to be the first ones that come to your head. We are going to be talking about one actress and one jazz musician. I believe our jazz musician was talked about in our top 5 when we were listing our top 5 women in history in specific categories. So we are going to dive a little bit into their early years, so their adolescence, and then we're going to talk about some of their accomplishments in their professional life. So, without further ado, I will start with our jazz musician, Billie Holiday. So Billie Holiday was an American jazz singer and songwriter, and she lived from April 15th until July 1959. So again, she's an American jazz singer and songwriter, and I'm going to share a quotation from her, something that she had said in her lifetime. So, if you copy, it means you're working without any real feeling. No two people on earth are alike, and it's got to be that way in music or it isn't music. I think that this quote is great, especially coming from a musician. I can only imagine the creativity that goes into being a musician, having to create all of the different rhythms and beats that go into a song, because you do not want to be listening to the same thing over and over again. And since Billie Holiday is so notable as a jazz musician, singer, and songwriter, I'm sure constantly, she was having to think of different things that would kind of turn the envelope. Is that the figure of speech? Change the envelope, fold the envelope? I couldn't tell ya. All right, so we're going to start with her early years. So, her early life is kind of wishy-washy because there are different sources that say kind of different things about what she had done with her early years. But you can conclude that she was involved in some perhaps not so good extracurricular activities, which maybe did lead her to some jail time where she had to kind of reflect on what she was doing with her life. But again, it is kind of wishy-washy with what she was doing in her time. So her mother did play a huge role in her love for jazz music, so we can credit her mother for all of the things that she has accomplished, really. And then in 1933, at just 18 years old, Billie Holiday was performing in her first gig. What makes her unique and why she's such a notable jazz musician is that she does not have a huge range in her voice. So when we think about Beyonce and all of her runs, we think about Taylor Swift and all of the things that she can do. Billie Holiday did not really have that that voice that we think of when we think of a musician. She did not sound like Adele. So she was notable actually for that unique voice. That is what drew people to her. So we're going to move on to her musical accomplishments now. So she is an American jazz singer and songwriter. What did she do? So being a singer and songwriter, she was performing, but she was also producing music for other people. So some of her some of her most notable works are as follows: God Bless the Child, Don't Explain, Lady Sings the Blues, Easy Living, and Strange Fruit. So those are some of her notable titles. If you hear them, give credit to Billie Holiday. And now we are going to talk about what she's kind of done on the administrative side, I guess you could say, of her career. So in 1944, she signed with Decca Records. So here at Decca Records, she had a lot of success there, but also she was able to work with her hero, someone she really looked up to in the music industry, Louis Armstrong. So I can totally understand wanting to work with Louis Armstrong. So it's awesome that she was able to do that, and that happened at her time at Decca Records. 14 years later, in 1958, she signed with Columbia Records. So she had done a quick little change in her record labels at the very end of her life. So again, back to her early life, It was kind of wishy-washy, so sources say that she does kind of did have a tough childhood, which had led her to be involved in some not so good things as an adult, which led to a dependency on some drugs and being involved in abusive relationships. So throughout her life, she did have a lot of negative impacts on herself, and she did die pretty early in her life at age 44. But she's still known as one of the most well-known jazz musicians in history. So that is Billie Holiday. We are going to now move on to the film side of pop culture. So we are going to be talking about Katherine Hepburn. I see myself a lot in Katherine Hepburn. When I was looking up some notable women, as soon as I came across Katherine Hepburn, I was like, I've got to know more about her. And upon my research, yes, I do relate to Katherine Hepburn, and you'll see why in a second. So she lived from 1907 to 2003, so this century. And she is a multiple award-winning American actress. That was like a tongue twister for me. So her quotation is, "Life is to be lived. If you have to support yourself, you would bloody well better find some way that is going to be interesting. And if you don't do that, and you don't do that by sitting around wondering about yourself." So right there, that quote is speaking to me. I think about things that I do all the time, whether it's something I did 2 weeks ago or something that I'm going to do a month in the future. I'm always thinking. So, starting with Miss Hepburn's early years, she was a strong, like free-spirited, free-willed adolescent. So much so that she was even reported to have been suspended from school. So when we think about our musicians, we do not think about people who are suspended and getting in trouble at school. And then, just like me, her first marriage was at age 21. So she was a young wife, just as I am. So then again, I can see myself in her. So her acting accomplishments. Again, she's a 4-time Oscar winner. So she's doing great things on screen. She won her first Oscar in 1933 at age 26, so just 5 years after getting married. And I can speak for myself, I am not going to win an Oscar 5 years after being married, but I think that's a huge accomplishment, such a young age to be winning such a prestigious award. This award was given to her for her role in Morning Glory. And again, I think just based off of what I've learned from her, a very fitting role, a story about a woman who rejects love for her career. So I think that is a great, strong female lead, right? Some of her other notable roles included the following: Alice Adams, State of the Union, Gone with the Wind, and then African Queen. Almost everything that I read about Katherine Hepburn did talk about African Queen. So I am sure that her performance in African Queen was one to remember. What makes Katherine Hepburn unique and what I see myself in is her distaste for the public eye. Katherine Hepburn was not someone who was involved with paparazzi, signing autographs, being in interviews. She wanted nothing to do with that. That was not her business. She was even coined as toxic for the box office. I could understand how having a camera or like a marker in my face all the time could get very annoying. So I commend her actually for being strong and kind of sticking to her guns when it comes to interviewing and taking photos. It wasn't until much later in her life where she was kind of settled in with the paparazzi and was able to take interviews and like do the photo thing. I see myself totally in that. When I do anything, I try and avoid the public eye as much as possible. But even though she was super not interested in what the paparazzi was doing, she still managed to win 4 Oscars. So I think that speaks volumes to her performance on screen. So that wraps up the first episode of Quality Time with Shay. I hope you enjoyed. Catch the next episode where we talk about something else that I feel like spilling the tea on. So if you have any suggestions, anything that you would like to hear me spill the tea on, go ahead and comment below. Thank you for watching. Bye.